Hello everyone, this is a podcast by our group, Monkey on Crack. The story is about the shadows of humanity. The Awakening. In the near future, the world stood on the precipice of a scientific breakthrough that promised to change the course of medicine forever. In a sterile, fluorescent-lit laboratory deep within a Corinthian Russian city, a scientist hunched over his workstation, sweat trickling down his forehead. The once bright-eyed researcher had become a ghost of his former self, consumed by the pressure of developing a cure for cancer. His eyes darted nervously between the bubbling beakers and the ominous shadows of his unfinished project. Just a little bit more, he muttered under his breath, his fingers trembling as he adjusted the settings on the centrifuge. This will be my legacy. The Naruto strain will save lives. But as he activated the device, an explosion of colors erupted in his chamber, engulfing him in a blinding light. As the smoke cleared, the day after the disaster brought whispers filling the streets. "Did you hear about the lab explosion?" One passerby whispered to another. "They say the scientist is dead, but there are rumors of something worse." In a hidden corner of the city, shadows flickered beneath the streetlights. A collective consciousness stirred, unseen and unknown, as the mutated beings that had once been human began to awaken. A new reality. Meanwhile, a seemingly ordinary high school student strolled through the sun-drenched streets of his neighborhood, oblivious to the chaos brewing in Russia. A mysterious fire erupted behind him. He spun around, heart racing as the flames danced dangerously close. Yet, he felt a strange calm wash over him. "What the?" he gasped, his body moving instinctively, dodging falling debris with an agility he had never known. "Stay back!" someone shouted. But he was already gone, racing into the fire. Emerging on the other side, he noticed the world around him distorting, reality bending like a funhouse mirror. "Dr. Kazuma!" he yelled, stumbling into the lab where a distinguished scientist was studying the latest developments in dimensional energy. "Are you alive?" the scientist exclaimed, rushing to his side. "You must listen to me. You're not just a regular human. You're an artifact created to bridge the normal world, the abnormal world, and the ghost world." "Artifact?" he echoed, disbelief etched on his face. "What are you talking about?" "Your DNA. It's been engineered with dimensional energy. You have a power that can change everything." The scientist's expression shifted to one of urgency. "But you need to understand, others are hunting you for that power." A scientist's heart. In another corner of the city, a passionate biomaterial scientist stared at her creation, Mycie. The adorable creature born from her mycelium experiments was slowly losing its vibrant color. She had developed a bond with Mycie, who followed her around like a puppy. "You're going to be okay, right?" she whispered, her heart aching as she watched its fluffy coat darken. "I'll figure this out, I promise," she said, determination fueling her resolve. As the days passed, she pored over her research notes, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Why won't you eat?" she pleaded, gently stroking Mycie's non-brutal edges. "I need you to be strong for me. Just hold on a little bit." But Mycie's condition worsened. Despair clawed at her heart as she realized her scientific knowledge wasn't enough to save her beloved companion. Maybe I need to reach out for help, she thought, her fingers trembling as she hesitated over her phone. Dark pathways. In the shadows of the digital world, a computer engineering student sat hunched over his laptop. His father's voice echoed in his mind, the day the president of the university had called him into the conference room still vivid. "We cannot accept you, my son. You possess skills beyond your years," the president had said, handing him a brown envelope filled with cash and a job offer that would lead him down a dark path. "Why did you leave us?" he murmured. fingers flying over the keyboard as he hacked into the black market underworld. 2 years later, his father reached out with one last job: delete my criminal history from the database. He had said, voice cold as steel, "I'll do it, but I want to see you afterward." The student replied, his heart racing as he planned his infiltration. "Fine," his father said, a shadow crossing his face. "But you must be careful." The chase begins. The tension mounted as the high school student navigated his way through the abnormal world. He encountered beings that twisted the laws of nature, battling bounty hunters like the Abyss, who taunted him relentlessly. "Run all you want," Abyss sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You can't escape what you are. You are a weapon, nothing more." The student gritted his teeth, the weight of his identity pressing down on him. "I won't let you control me," he declared, determination flaring in his chest. As he honed his abilities, he discovered a hidden strength within himself. He began to manipulate the distortions, using them to evade the Abyss and others who sought to capture him. With each encounter, he felt the pull of his past. Memories of his forgotten identity flickered like shadows in his mind.
Hope rekindled. Back in her lab, the biobacterial scientist sat in silence, her hands resting on my lifeless form. "I'm sorry," she murmured, tears slipping down her cheeks. But as she sat in despair, a soft glow faded from the eyes. She gasped, hope reigniting. Maybe there's still a... She couldn't mix a final, desperate concoction, and fell with a strain, otherworldly energy that had saved others before. With trembling hands, she fed it to mice, praying it would be enough to bring her friends back. The Reckoning. The young computer engineering student's final confrontation with his father's loom. His heart heavy with both fear and anger. Memories from his mother's death, the pain, the unanswered questions filled him with determination. "You took everything from me," he murmured, as his father stepped from the shadows, his face edged with a cold pride. "I did what I had to do," his father replied, but the student's resolve had hardened. "No, you destroyed us." With a final burst of defense, he completes his talks, severing the last link to his father's control. A new dawn. The sun began to rise over the city, casting a golden glow over the chaos below. The high school students stood atop a rooftop, watching the smothering remains of the laboratory where it had all started. The memories of his journey flashed through his mind, each one filling his resolve. This city needs someone who would run, he whispered. He would face with his fear, his identity, and the world that awaited him. Behind him, he heard a gentle sound. Mice had appeared on the rooftop, restoring and glowing softly. The scientist followed, a smile of gratitude and determination brightening her face. "Together, we can rebuild," she said, her voice full of hope. "Yes," he replied, nodding. "We'll create something new from the shadows." The convergence. In the heart of the city, a sudden strong breeze. A river fading with chaos bearing in the surface. The high school student, now more confident and less suited, found himself standing before a street portal, a swollen vortex that threw into tears apart the world around him. His powers had grown stronger, but so had the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Cosima, the scientist who had once guided him, appeared beside him, his face gray. "This is a result of your essence," he explained. "The portal, the dimensional rift. It was all created by the experiment that born in it. You're the key to stabilize or destroying everything." The student looked toward the vortex, his mind racing. His powers could either close the rift or allow it to tear apart the very fabric of building. I never asked for this power, he muttered. But Kazuma placed a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes, fate doesn't give us a choice, but it is up to you to choose how to use it.
The broken pot. Meanwhile, the computer engineering student, who had severed his ties with his father, found himself in a different battle, alone in his apartment. He stared at the shiny skin of his laptop. The encryption his father had left behind was still locked tight, holding secrets he didn't yet understand. As he dug deeper, the screen flickered, revealing a hidden message. There are forces beyond your control. The path you've chosen leads to destruction. The words sent a chill down his spine. He had always believed that by removing his father's influence, he would find peace. But now, his actions seemed to have unleashed something deep darker. No, I'm not going back, he whispered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm not going to let this haunt me anymore. Suddenly, the door to his apartment burst open. The ape stepped in, his smile a twisted reflection of the engineer's own doubts. You can't escape your past, the ape taunted. You've become part of a much larger game. The engineer gritted his teeth. I'll play my own game now. With a sudden determination, the engineer grabbed his gear and rushed out of his apartment. He knew that whatever the abyss was hinting at was somehow connecting to the rift and the chaos that was unfolding in the city. It was time to face it head on. The struggle within. The storm outside intensified as all four of them gathered at the side of the rift. The city was in turmoil, and strange creatures began to crawl out of the rift, their eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger. Kazuma, the high school student, the scientist, and Maisi were all standing together, facing the unknown. Kazuma turned to the scientist and the student. We need to synchronize our powers. Only then can we stabilize the rift. The high school student hesitated, but then nodded. His powers shimmering in the air as the energy swirled around them. Maisi, glowing with an otherworldly light, approached the rift, and the scientist joined the student, her hands glowing with a soft, gentle pulse. As they prepared to face the rift together, a figure approached from the edge of the battlefield, the engineer. His heavy footsteps interrupted the silence, and despite his internal turmoil, he knew what had to be done. He had tracked the strange occurrences to this very location, and now he was here, ready to join the fight. I may not know how to fix all of this, he said, his voice steady, but I can't let you all face this alone. With that, the five of them stood united, each contributing their unique abilities. Together, they unleashed a wave of energy that struck the rift. For a moment, everything stopped. The creatures paused, the storm quieted, and the world held his breath. The rebirth. The vortex began to collapse, and the rift slowly began to close. It was a fight that tested their resolve, their powers, and their understanding of who they were. But as their energy surged and the world around them trembled, they realized something else. It wasn't just their abilities that had brought them together. It was their shared humanity. The decisions they had made, the people they had become, and the connections they had forged were what truly gave them strength. Despite the chaos, despite their differences, they had chosen to fight for something greater than themselves. As the rift sealed, the storm dissipated, and the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds. The city, scared but alive, stood in the quiet aftermath. The creatures had vanished, and the world seemed to breathe again.
A new world. In the days that followed, the five of them found their place in a world that had been irrevocably changed. The high school student, now more in control of his powers, sought to protect the world from the future threats. Ensuring the balance between dimensions was maintained, the scientist, her bond with the mice is stronger than ever, continued her work to heal and improve the world with groundbreaking discoveries in the biomaterials. The engineer his father's legacy fiery behind him, working to rebuild his life using his hacking skill to help protect the world from unseen dangers. Kazuma have will fulfill his dream role in stabilizing the lift and guiding the group through their darkest moment. Choose a different path, the battle has changed him, and he decided to embark on a journey of his own, one that would take him across the world to gather knowledge and prepare for any future threat that might arise. Though he was no longer physically by their sides, his presence lingering in the heart of the team, and his work would continue in ways that could not yet fulfill comprehend. Together they formed an unlikely alliance, born not just by the events that had unfolded, but by the choice they have made. As they stood together, gazing out over the city, the high school student spoke. "This is just beginning," he said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "A new dawn for all of us." And so, in the quiet of the morning, they moved forward east with their own path, yet forever connected by the shared suffering that had forced them into something more than they had ever been before. The echoes of the rift. The days after the lift closes were filled with uncertainty. The world they were saved was not the same anymore. The strange energies that had permeated the city left an indelible mark on the land. Areas near the lift had been marked as hazardous, the very fabric of reality there seeming to warp and twist in unnatural ways. The high school student, who had once feared his powers, now found himself in the center of a growing movement to understand and control the force that had almost destroyed the world. But peace was fading. In an underground faculty, far from the city, Kazuma started that the data gathering during the lift collapsing. The energy signatures they had encountered were unlike anything in the known universe. It was if the lift wasn't just a tear between dimensions, but it is an invitation to something far older and far more dangerous than they had imagined. Kazuma's eyes were filled with a troubled understanding. "There's something else out there," he murmured, his hand running over a schematic of the lift energy source. "Something that knows we were coming, and it's not done yet."
A new alley. The scientist, having embraced a bond with mice, took a different path, no longer confined by the traditional boundaries of science. She sought to uncover the deeper mysteries of the raft. The creature that had once been an experiment now acted as a guide. Mice was no longer just an organism. It was evolving, growing stronger with each passing day, and its knowledge of the otherworldly forces was expanding. One night, after a long day of research, the scientists and mice ventured into the heart of the abandoned city. This is the lab. This is where they found an ancient relic, something that shouldn't have been existing in the first place. But it was not an ancient relic. It was just a tablet covered in symbols neither than recognized. Thousands of years old. Should have been ancient, but it's not because it's a tablet. Anyways, as mice touched the surface, the symbols glowed faintly. Boom, 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 and the air around them shifted. "We are not the only one looking for answers," the scientist whispered, a voice filled with both awe and fear. "This is a message or a warning." The rift embraced. The scientist stood frozen in place, her eyes locked onto Mice as it withered in agony. Its once vibrant fur now charred and blackened. The tablet laid before them, its mysterious symbols glowing faintly, pulsating with a black sort of energy. The air around them felt heavier, charged with something far beyond their comprehension. Mice, the scientist whispered. Her voice broken. She fell on her knees beside the creature, cradling its fading form. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Mice's eyes, once bright with curiosity, now flickered with pain and confusion. It attempted to move but collapsed in the scientist's arm. Its fur now nothing but ash. The scientist pressed her forehead against Mice, whispering soft words of comfort. Her voice echoed in her mind, but she didn't recognize, cold and unfeeling. This is the only beginning you're about to see. The scientist shrugged, feeling the rift's powers in her word. She knew now that it wasn't just a force, it was a presence, a conscience of its own. I need to understand this, she muttered, standing up slowly. I need to understand what's happening. Mice, I promise you, this won't be in vain. She took a final look at her fallen companion, her heart breaking. She turned her attention back to the tablet. There was more here, more answers hidden beneath its surface. The rift was just not a cosmic anomaly. It was something deeper, far older, far older than she could have ever imagined. The echoes of the past. The scientists spent the following days poring over the tablet, deciphering the symbols and the cryptic messages etched into the surface. As she studied, she began to uncover fragments of an ancient language, one that seemed to describe the very nature of the rift itself. But the more she learned, the more terrified she became. She had discovered that the rift wasn't just a portal. It was a doorway into a reality that existed parallel to their own. One that was ruled by the beings far older and more powerful than anything the scientists could have ever conceived. One night, as she slept in the lab, a strange dream took hold of her. She stood in a vast, dark void, surrounded by towering figures whose faces were hidden in the shadow. The air vibrated with their presence, just like my voice. You are not the first to seek the truth. A voice so deep resonated in her mind. A voice that was both male, female, and terrifying. The rift is ours. You cannot control it. You cannot stop it. It is at the beginning. The cycle that never ceases. The dream faded, and the scientist awoke with a start, drenched in sweat. Her mind was racing like the F1 car. The truth was slipping through her fingers like sand. She needed to find Kazuma. He had to be the key to understanding how to stop this, or at least how to control it. The betrayal. The scientist tracked Kazuma down to an isolated lab on the outskirts of the city. He was working feverishly. His hands were shaking as he sifted through papers and data, going through them over and over again, shaking, non-stop shaking, as if he was trying to make sense of the chaos that has just unfolded over him. He was just so sick, like he was possessed. Kazuma, she said, her voice trembling with both fear and hope. I found something. Something about the rift. It's worse than we thought. She was panicking. Kazuma didn't look up. His voice was cold, distant. You shouldn't have come here. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand more than you think, she shot back. This is just not about the rift anymore. It's about something much bigger. Something they want. Finally turned to her face, his eyes filled with something dark and unrecognizable. No, you are wrong. You don't understand. We can't stop it. We can only survive. Try to survive. What are you talking about? She demanded, in a different accent as her heart was racing. Her ancestors were speaking for her. Kazuma stepped forward. His gaze was more intense. And you think you can control it? You think you can stop what's coming? The rift is a force of nature, a thing beyond our comprehension. We're just ants struggling to survive in its shadow. No! The scientists shot back, backing away. I won't accept that. There is always a way. But Kazuma was already shaking his head. You don't know what the cost. I know. I've seen it myself. The scientist's eyes widened in realization. Oh, you've been working with them, haven't you? The beings from the rift. The beings from the rift, you were with them. Kazuma silenced. That was the answer she needed. His silence.
The final confrontation, as the days passed, the scientists and Kazuma grew further apart. The leaves were consuming them both, but in different ways. Kazuma was becoming more distant, more determined to follow the path the leaf had set for him. The scientist, however, could still see the remnants of the man that she had once known. If only she could reach him before it was too late. The final confrontation came when Kazuma appeared in the heart of the lab, the sand tablet in his hands, growing with the other, outwardly light. His eye was wide, filled with an obsessed gleam. It's too late, Kazuma, the scientist said, her voice cracking with the emotion. We cannot control this. We cannot even survive it. You don't understand what you are dealing with. Kazuma lips curling into a sadistic smile. I understand perfectly. The lift isn't something to fear. It's something to be embraced. I'm done fighting it. I'm ready to be a part of it. Don't do this, she cried, her voice desperately. You are losing yourself, Kazuma. You are becoming something else. Kazuma took a step closer, his voice lowered and filled with a cold certainty. I already lost myself, but I have found something greater in the lift, something that will make us all powerful. The scientist felt a chill run down her spine. You don't know what you're asking for. The lift is a parasite. It consumes everything in its path. But Kazuma was already stepping into the lift, growing, his form fading as the energy consuming him. No, Kazuma screamed. She screamed on the top of the lung, reaching out, but it was too late. He was gone. A shattered world. The lift's power had taken away. Kazuma was lost to it, and the scientist was left standing alone, surrounded by the remnants of their shattered world. The lab was in ruins. The once vibrant research now a distant memory. The city outside was in chaos, its people unaware of the true threat that loomed just beyond their reach. The scientist stood at the center of the lab, staring at the tablet that had started it all. Her mind was racing, but there was no clear path forward. The lab was spreading, its influence growing stronger, with each passing day. She failed to save Kazuma, she had failed to stop the rift, and now all that was left was the cruelty of what came next. But there was still one glimmer of hope. She had learned something from the rift, secretly, something that could still change everything. She just didn't know if she had the strength to face it. Final descent, the scientist stood amidst the carnage, eyes glanced over the stains of blood and burned flesh filling the air. There was no screams now, just quiet. Suffocating weight of their actions, they had crossed lines they could never return from. Instead feel heavier, the ground beneath them shifting as the rip itself was pouring everything into the void. One by one, the bodies of the fallen, betrayed, broken, lay in twisted, unnatural positions. There was no victory here, only the silence of the annihilation. The last of the broke frame's heartbeat was drowning in the thickness, suffocating darkness, consuming by something far worse than the leaf. The scientist's eyes figured, large, and as they turned their gaze into the endless, yawning abyss, the rift was no longer just a force. It was the end of everything, and there was no escape. The world crumbled, they crumbled, as the darkness swallowed the whole. The hardest whisper of the lift echoed in their mind. You are not meant to survive. And in that moment, they knew there was nothing left. Nothing. Months passed, the lift was sealed, the temple lost to time once again. But the impact of what had happened remained. The team, while scattered, has all gone their separate ways. Each of them forever changed by the events that has transpired. The scientist, forever haunted by the image of a Kazuma dead, could not escape the weight of what had happened. His last moments played over in her mind like a clue. The death of Maisie, the little creature that had once been a beacon of hope, had only deepened her descent into darkness. The angers of it waited on her every moment, deepening the hollowness in her eyes, in her soul. Every step she took from that day forward felt like walking through a fog, and suddenly lost, but moving because there was nothing else left to do. The engineer now had the head of a new organization dedicated to uncovering the truth behind the mystery events, working tirelessly to preserve the knowledge of the rift and the ancients begin. But even if he knew that their victory was only temporary, the world was far more fragile than they had realized. And the answers they sought came with a heavy cost. The high school student who had once felt powerless found his place in the world. Though his past was never far behind, he too carried the weight of those they had lost, the friends, the allies, the peace of themselves they could never get back. But even with the rift sealed, even with the immediate threat vanished, the shadow of the past never fully disappeared. The echo of what had happened reeled always in the back of their mind, a reminder that the peace, the price they had paid could never be undone. The scientist gazing into the void left by Kazuma and Izzy realized that the battle had shifted. What had they fought was only the beginning. and the darkness that has come to defy the world now had a more personal hold on her than she was willing to admit. One thing was certain, the lift had been closest, but the doors to unknown had only just begun to open. For her, the end had never felt so far away, and she knew deep down the scar have left by those who have fallen would haunted her forever.